His was the only boat to arrive.
I think maybe it was a cow. I don't know.
There's the thank you letter from Lyndon Johnson.
There was even a monorail at one point to the east of us.
Plus, everybody forgets about pirates.
This is the coolest field trip I have ever been on.
I don't know, but I've been told, keep on dancing, won't ever get old.
Hello and welcome to the Long Island History Project, the podcast that brings you stories and interviews with people passionate about Long Island history. You can hear them all at longislandhistoryproject.org. My name is Chris Kretz, and I am your host, and our opening music is courtesy of the Homegrown String Band.
Testing 1, 2, 3. This is the first improvisation of the Eel Catching project.
Meet Glenda Dickerson. You'll hear more about her over the next 35 minutes, but right now she's standing in the middle of a black box theater surrounded by students and actors and colleagues, people she calls eel catchers, which she defines as someone who loves people and old pictures and history and characters and folklore and drama and textures and art and fun and laughter and all at the same time. What they're doing is bringing oral history to life, which is perfect for this next installment in our deeper look at Long Island oral history collections. I'm going to forego our usual outro, so I'll just say now that you can find a full breakdown of all the participants in our show notes at longislandhistoryproject.org. And I'll venture to guess that if you've been listening, if you've been following along, then you too are an eel catcher, just like Glenda and me, and today's two very special guests.
My name is Scott Farrar. I'm the curator of the Three Village Historical Society.
My name is Robert Annan, and I am the project archivist for Long Island Libraries Resources Council.
So, Rob, this is our extended series. I don't know if we thought it would take this long. We're still going. It could be an ongoing series. But we are talking about a series of oral histories you helped digitize for the Three Village Historical Societies. That's why we've assembled here today. Who wants to just start off, tell us the name of the collection, and then we can start talking about the history of the recordings.
Yeah. So this collection was created by Glenda Dickerson. It was a collection of oral histories. It was created, in 1986. Went along for 2 years, and then the performance happened in 1988.
What did Glenda call the project?
Glenda called the project Eel Catching in Setauket, based on a William Sidney Mount painting that Mount created in 1845. And it was really based on oral histories of the community that recognized the central figure in that painting as Rachel Holland Hart, a matriarch of the Christian Avenue community.
We are waiting for the rest of the most important component of this living library, and that is the Christian Avenue community itself. These are the women and men who you see sitting here before.
And a lot of the oral histories were talking about the heritage and genealogy and life histories of that community.
Right, and she was, we'll say, a theater professor at Stony Brook. So there is, Rob, when I was listening to this in comparison to the other ones we've talked about, there did seem to be, I don't want to say an artistic element, but there was a play based on it that was part of the project, and dramatizations around just so she was using oral history as a way into a fuller maybe representation of this community. Did you notice anything different when you were working with the materials or the way that she structured the interviews? Or
Well, I was curious. I was never sure what came first, Glenda's idea to do the play, or it came from her interviews with this community. Because the project culminates in her writing this play, and I'm actually not sure if she's the sole author of the play, or she worked with her students who also helped do these interviews. But the culmination of the project happened in, I think, June of 1988 with the play that was also called Eel Catching in Setauket.
So we were talking about a specific community in Setauket or outside of Setauket. And you can correct me as I go, or I'll let you fill in the gaps, but it's the Bethel-Christian Avenue-Laurel Hill Historic District now, but that encompasses sort of the range of neighborhoods or people we're talking about?
Yeah, so that community really formed in early 1900s. A lot of the Black and Indigenous community were really throughout the entire Three Village area. A lot of those homes on Christian Avenue were throughout Oldfield Road, going into Oldfield, and were moved in the early part of the 1900s to the Christian Avenue, to that street. And it's kind of bookended by two cemeteries, the Old Bethel Cemetery to the east, to the west, sorry, and then the Laurel Hill Cemetery to the east. And a lot of the Black and Indigenous community still lives in that area today, and that was the focus of this oral history project.
So for people that might not be that familiar with the map, we talked on this podcast before about Setauket and Port Jefferson and, the Culper-Spiring history, which is a certain demographic of society, we'll say. So where the geography of the area, where is this Christian Avenue? Like, is it on the outskirts of one or the other? Is it,
It's kind of the heart of the Three Village community, because you have, Stony Brook to the west, Oldfield to the north, Setauket to the east, and then also East Setauket and South Setauket.
I was going to ask you that. Are there more than 3 villages?
There are, yeah. And then there's Poquat.
Okay.
And the community of Dyer's Neck. But the Christian Avenue community, and it was really, or is still today, really at the heart of the Three Village area.
And so this is predominantly African American, but also there's a Native American history to it.
That's what's pretty neat about the history here, is that we see not only in the community who are still here today, the Setalcott Nation, but throughout the archives, that there's this unbroken chain of Native Americans living here from thousands and thousands of years ago all the way up into the present day. And we have those traces not only in the archives, but in secondary histories and, of course, oral histories.
Well, the families here were Indian. Partial Indian.
What kind of Indian?
Setauket. Indian, I call it.
Setauket, yeah.
Setauket Indians.
Because they are part of the Shinnecock.
They're part of the Shinnecock.
Ah. So you're Indian, you're a mixture, Indian and black.
Yes.
Oh my.
Now the Shinnecocks.
Shinnecock is relatives of ours.
Now the Shinnecocks are from here, from Long Island. Okay, so then your father.
The Buns, the Hunters, the Treadwells, and let me see. That's about all I can remember now. That are in the reservation right now. They're relatives of ours. And who else? The Squires did too. There's the Squires. But the Squires come from the Poospatuck.
From the who?
They call it the Poospatuck Reservation. That's in Mastic Beach.
Okay.
So, Rob, I know we've talked before in terms of how much you actually get to listen to these as you're digitizing them. Did anything stand out in terms of knowledge you gleaned from this, or just anecdotes as you were running the machine?
Well, it's funny because this was not the first project I worked on with the Three Village Historical Society and Scott. Back in, I think, late 2023 was the first time I worked on a project with the Three Village Historical Society, and they had pointed out these tapes to me then. And, me with a little bit of foresight, in my spare time while I was working on that project, I had begun digitizing these tapes. Just by the sheer description that either Scott or Marty had given to me about them. I was like, these are really important. Maybe there'll be time in this project to upload some of these to New York Heritage, which is the digital collections platform all these recordings get uploaded to so people can enjoy and are available. They're available on New York Heritage now. But I didn't actually get around to it until Scott came up with the idea to tackle the whole project, as well as all of their other oral histories.
And there were pamphlets and written materials.
Yeah, we not only finished digitizing the tapes from the Eel Catching project, but any sort of important ephemera and documentation from the project. And so that's how that came to fruition just last year. And
what was the extent? I don't know if you remember the actual number of items you had, the recordings you had to digitize.
Between the recordings and the documentation and the videotape, there wasn't too much of this collection, but for a lot of oral history collections, there are often copies of interviews in these boxes that were made for other people to listen to at the time. And then so you end up just picking the best sounding versions of these tapes. And that's what gets uploaded.
So you're saying there were multiple copies of the same interview? Or?
Yeah, that's it's very common. But unfortunately, it was commonplace and very easy for people to make copies of cassette tapes immediately after they were made. But if you keep making a copy of a tape, they sound progressively worse. And so a lot of, not a lot of the project, but a portion of the project was determining, say, how many Ted Green interviews do we have? Oh, it seems like there's 6 of them, but it's actually 2 or 3, and here are the original tapes and here are the copies. And then part of the work is determining what sounds best. And that's not always the original tape.
And again, I don't know if this was part of the approach that they were taking, but a lot of the interviews are sort of in the middle of life. So there's a great one where they're on the bus going to the powwow, and she's interviewing people in the bus seats.
It's terrific.
This is Port Jefferson now. Oh, all right. This is Port Jefferson. And there's the boat comes in. You see that boat pretty soon. It's coming in now. Now.
Did y'all come to the harbor when you were little?
Yes, we come down here when we were small.
And somewhere they're sitting at a dinner table. It sounds like they're in the home,
Now, Grandpa Self, Jeremiah Self, used to go to sea. He was a captain on a boat. She said at that time there were no blacks who were, but there was.
Is that right? He was a captain on a boat?
Oh, yes,
Jeremiah Sells.
Jeremiah Sells.
Do you know when he was born? Around about?
No, but I could find out. That would be very easy. I said he came up to Mount Sinai.
Which is that's down here.
Down in Mount Sinai. The Congregational Church down there, that cemetery down there. Because a lot yeah, that's where he was buried.
Well, and some of them have multiple people on the same recording.
Yes.
2 or 3 people.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny enough, that's not always documented on the cassette, because if you're just looking at a box of tapes, you're working with what's written on the labels until you actually hear what's going on. So very often, someone's spouse or child will come into the recording.
Or they ask them off mic.
Unannounced. And then it's maybe not until the end of the recording that they're saying, oh, goodbye so-and-so. Like you don't, it's not until you actually are dealing with the recording and listening to it that you understand all the people that are involved.
And Scott, we were talking before about this area and how the Culper history has kind of taken root in the public consciousness. So you hear about Talmadge and Townsend and Brewster. But this collection are names that are probably just as important. There's a lot of Harts and Sells and Greens and Tobiases. So what can you say about this community, these people, these interconnected families, and just some of their shared history?
Yeah, that's a great question, because if you listen to the oral histories, all of the interviewees are incredibly welcoming. They're really hospitable, and they talk about a lot of these oral histories. Like I'm thinking about Lucy Hart Keyes. She's talking a lot about who she's working for up in Oldfield, right? And these names, when you learn about the history here, they are a lot of really rich Gold Coast elitists who had come from New York City and made summer homes in Oldfield.
This is 20th century about?
Early 1900s.
Okay. And all the people, let me see, the people that I have worked for are dead. The houses tore down, the first ones. The last one was Mrs. Fuller. I just got through her there in March. I was with her 42 years.
42 years.
42 years.
Where does she live?
Oldfield.
Oh, in Oldfield, that wealthy section.
I never worked for anybody much but the very. But when I first came along, I did go along with some of the poor people. Well, mostly just being around them. They didn't have nothing to pay much, but didn't have much more than you had. But they were always nice.
And a lot of these individuals weren't part of the old families, the Satterleys, the Thompsons, and what have you, the Brewsters, right? And when you think about who's being interviewed, like you said, the Harts and the Sells, these are the founding families of the Three Village area. If you even walk through the Old Bethel Cemetery or the Laurel Hill Cemetery, you see a lot of these names. Harts, Sells, Thompsons, Lewises. These are some of the oldest families in the community. They've always been here, and they've helped build what we know today, all these historic homes and businesses. So it's pretty incredible that what Rob was able to do for us here and for the descendant community with preserving their voices and their stories and really helping to integrate this into our programming and the heritage of the community.
And my mind is so clear.
It sure is.
My mind is so clear. It's clear back then than it is now.
Is that right?
That's what happened a month ago. I have to stop and think. But it is clear as a crystal back. I can go back to 4 or 5 years old.
Well, that's what I want to get. That's the information I want, is back as far as you can remember.
I can, and someone is talking to me.
No, one of the things I can't forget to mention is how hard Scott and I worked with the families of these amazing individuals in the oral histories was on nailing down pictures of all of the people involved, to the point where I probably got, I annoyed Scott about it, but it's important stuff, and don't lie. I was annoying about it with you.
And they had the pictures; they were able to.
Because there were a lot of slides from the original project, from what we could glean, and also Bev Tyler was kind of around and working with these individuals because he probably knew most of them, and so I'm not sure if Bev took the pictures or anything, but there are a lot of pictures from some of the events that we're talking about, and then we ultimately worked with Helen to further identify some of these individuals. And so when we learned from her who certain people were, I then I would recognize them in other pictures.
Oh, okay.
And then further identifying just people in the photos, and because I'd be looking at the same people for weeks, and it wasn't until like towards the end of the project where Helen was like, "Oh, this is so and so, and this is so and so, and this is so and so," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I've been staring at them the whole time."
And Helen being
Helen Sells, she's the co-chairman of the Setalcott Indian Council, and that's why we love working with Rob, because I love that saying, whatever task, big or small, do it right or not at all, and Rob kind of embodies that, because he makes sure that every X is crossed and T is crossed or whatever, right?
I try.
You make sure that not only have you seen every version of a tape that is within a collection, but also trying to connect a photograph to each, voice, and then also look at every archival thing that had to do with that project and make sure it's all back together. It's all the context is there for researchers and for family members who can do this type of stuff. And it's incredible the amount of detail and commitment Rob has when working on these projects. And it really is. I think it's something that more historical societies and museums and organizations on Long Island really need to be taking advantage of, because there's these collections are out there, and it's because of people like Rob that they're being made accessible.
The other thing we're talking about, these efforts to preserve things, and from our perspective in the late or 21st century here, we can kind of see the cycle, right? So this Glenda Dickerson had the foresight or put this project together in '87, and then it's like handing a baton in a relay race. So the next generation of preservationists or societies have to know they have this, and then what's the new technology that can preserve it? Just like with Manhasset, someone in the 1950s said, hey, let's buy a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And so, every generation gets its champion, I guess. People that think we need to preserve this to the best of their ability, and then the next generation, sorry, we have to make sure we keep it or maintain it.
Yeah. 75 years ago, it was a reel-to-reel tape recorder. 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, it was a cassette player. Now it's our phones.
Yep.
Anyone can just click a button on their phone.
But like you're saying, you have to save that recording, add metadata to it, make sure it's preserved somewhere.
Yeah, the beauty of tapes is that they're a physical thing. You record a bunch of oral histories through your laptop or on your phone, and then nothing is uploaded to the cloud, then it's gone. Granted, collections can go missing, but thankfully these were all in good shape, and where they always have been.
To that, Scott, and I know you've been at the society only, 5, 10
coming
years?
up on 3 years, I think.
Okay. So from your sense, this project was done, you said maybe Bev was somewhat involved in the 86, 87, and it was in the collection. Was it known what was there? Like kind of they always knew it was there, and we'll get to it someday, or they brought it out every once in a while to highlight it?
Yeah, I mean, Glenda Dickerson donated all of her notes and research papers, and we, our historian Bev Tyler, he actually dedicated an entire volume of our publication, the Three Village Historian, to the project. So we actually still sell those old historian copies in the gift shop, and that had the entire program and what happened, and of course all of Glenda's notes as well. But it really wasn't until Rob came to help inventory and recatalog our cassettes that we had in our collection that these were kind of brought back out and organized in a way that helps us and helps researchers identify them, and also teaching us at the Historical Society how to store them properly. And
you didn't have them in the basement, did you?
No, in our archival room. Yeah. The correct housing for these and all that.
I think the funny little story about this is when I first started working with TVHS, I was working on another project it was just like a general reorganizational project for their archive at the Historical Society. And Bev, the first day, came up to me. He's like, "Listen, we can't find these tapes. I'm worried, but it just turned out that there was like a large box blocking one of the aisles to the archives room, and I moved it, and I walked down there, and the tapes were where they were always supposed to be, safe and snug, and there."
Well, he was really concerned about that VHS tape of the actual performance. What
a saga that has been.
Yeah.
A saga in terms of digitizing it or just finding it or preserving it?
So, I learned through Bev that the culmination of this project was Glenda's play, also called Eel Catching in Setauket. And so Glenda used the words from the interviews that she conducted as the script, and created the script for the play. And then the play was premiered at Stony Brook, I think, in June of 1988. And so I learned that TVHS had a copy of the videotape, the only known recording.
Did she only perform it once?
I think a couple times on a single weekend.
Okay. Yeah, June 22nd to June 25th.
Yes, okay, so for about a week, a few performances for 1 week from 1 year, and Bev had this tape of the recording. And then when I went to digitize it back then, a couple of years ago, there was no sound. There was no sound. It was just picture, and I couldn't quite understand. And then so we did this project, we did the actual project focusing on the oral histories, and I said to Scott, "Listen, let me borrow the tape again, and let me see if, for some reason, maybe I'll try a bunch of different VCRs, and I'll see if
it was just the machine.
Maybe it was just the machine I was using, just to double check, because the tape is so important. It's the only record of the play captured with the original cast, and all the family members sitting around as it's going.
It's amazing experience.
It's a great document.
Yeah.
But I had played it in a different VCR, and I heard static, and I just thought it had no soundtrack. So I was like, I had just pumped the volume up as much as I possibly could, and I heard whispers of people speaking. I was like, okay, oh my God, I did not hear this a couple years ago. So I sent it out to a great colleague of mine, Elliot Kiseleff, who works for Historic Films out in Greenport, who does any sort of film digitization. He actually digitized the TVHS's films that look glorious. They're also up on New York Heritage. And he's just an audio digitization expert. And I mean, people go to him for all sorts of audio preservation needs. And I was like, take this tape. I know there is sound on it somewhere, and I just need you to do whatever you can to salvage it. And what Elliot returned was a perfectly normal sounding, no problem, soundtrack. Now, all the recordings and the transcripts of the tapes that unfortunately could not be found, unfortunately, and the recording and all the ephemera, all the documentation from the collection is...
So those transcripts, because I noticed there were some that didn't have the audio. So the transcripts had been done back in the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay,
From
so
what I could tell,
contemporaneous
they
with
were created at the time, like shortly after the recording.
Okay.
But I will say, one of the recordings of Nellie Edwards, even though we can't find it, she's still very much with us and lovely. And someone still needs to ask her if she's got that tape.
Yeah, I wanted to just to get to the lived history on the tapes a little more. And I listen to, and I'm listening for like stories and snippets, and so I'll mention a few things. But if it triggers anything in both of you that you want to say, hey, this tells a piece of the Three Village story. One was because I've done a few episodes on baseball on Long Island, and one of the researchers had looked into African American baseball players on Long Island, and he mentioned the Suffolk Giants.
Now, where was the ball field?
Well, the ball field was here in East Setauket, up there near where that dairy farm is now. That was a field there. Then around by Cardwell's corner, in the woods section there, where all them houses are in there, that used to be another ball field.
Now, who was playing at the ball field in those days?
They had a team by the name of Suffolk's Giants, all black team. And that went for years until it just got old and they just died.
And then we had a softball team, a girls' softball team, that was a shoot-off of the black Suffolk Giants baseball team. And we would call the Suffolk Giant Juniorettes. Suffolk Giant Juniorettes, that's what we called. And we played pretty good ball. I pitched and I played first base, and we had a good time too.
So I mean, if you can speak to anything about the baseball playing, the black teams, the Suffolk Giants specifically, were well known, right, from this area.
Yeah. They one of the living libraries who's still around the community, Hub Edwards. He was a player on that team, and we have other oral histories and our past exhibit on Chicken Hill, which was a community right in the heart of East Setauket around the rubber factories. We had an exhibit for a decade at the Historical Society. Now it's a digital exhibit that you can go on to our website and see. Really focused on that history and those artifacts that tell that story. And yeah, I mean, Glenda's performance, not only her oral history project and gathering oral histories, but the performance that came from this really tried to draw on that history. The performance itself happened at Stony Brook University in this black box theater. It was this like room where you could do experimental performance work, right? And if you go on New York Heritage, and as I urge everyone to do, and watch the performance, you can see there's no real organization to the space. It feels like a living room. Like there's rugs out, there's people sitting on the floor, people sitting in different chairs.
Like a theater in the round almost.
Yeah. And there's artifacts from the actual community members, which included sports equipment, included an eel spear, included lamps that were in, people's grandmothers' living rooms and dishware. And she really made that performance reflect the oral histories and where those oral histories were taking place. And all of the people who provided oral histories, all the elders of the community were sitting in church pews, and they were
really a real culmination of the the whole project.
And they were honored whenever their words were being spoken. The main actress who was portraying Rachel Holland Hart would pick them up by the arm and walk them around.
I saw that. I wasn't quite sure why but that makes sense.
And using their words to tell the folk life and the history and the heritage of the community.
Oh yes, Pete Tucker is the folk son of John Henry and Aunt Hagar. He lives in the collective memory of the Christian Avenue folks. How y'all doing this evening? All right. He revolves in their minds along with visions of pipe-smoking great-grandmothers and babies being stolen by gypsies. I like that one, too.
Yeah, we'll mention, I just learned that Glenda was active on Broadway. So, I mean, she had the directing, producing chops. It's no surprise that she could do such a professional looking or
She was
creative.
the second black woman to direct on Broadway, a performance called Reggae, a Musical Revelation, which was in 1980, so shortly before the Eel Catching and Setauket project. And she herself is such this monumental figure, creating this space for black women's voices, both in scholarship and performance. And we are actually honored to have Dr. Khalid Yahya Long of Howard University, when this project was kind of nearing its end and everything was being put up on New York Heritage. He provided a lecture for the Historical Society on the significance of Glenda's life. And he himself is a theater professor, like I said, at Howard University, and he's writing a book on Glenda's life and her importance, and telling the community and teaching us all. Not only we have the archives, we have the performance now, we have the oral histories, but why it was so significant to the broader field of theater and what's really happening in intersectionality and what's happening within theatrical performances and academia.
It's just more uses that oral histories can be put to, these creative expressions of the same content.
Yeah, as these tools of cultural survival and social transformation.
And they offer glimpses of the slave past. They talk about a house that had slave names, I think, engraved on the wall. Someone had a ancestor who was named after Silas Strong, so you see glimpses of this, the Culper people sprinkled in.
When were the earliest colored people? When did they move into this area? Were they brought here as slaves?
I think that when this area started, colored people came along from the very beginning. This is my theory.
Is that right?
Because people have asked me that before, and ever since I can remember, there have been colored people here.
My mother had told them, but when she worked at a house, they had a slave's name on the wall.
Yeah.
And he was black. Well, you worked in a house that my songs like that.
Yeah. And Grandma Holland's name, before she married, she was raised for the Strongs. All the Strongs on Strong Neck, because see, they had slaves at that time. And your father was raised over there too, Sealer. Over there, see. That's why he had the name Sealer. That's what I know. Named after the Seal Strong.
Yeah, right.
So just to lay out a timeline for some of this area. So this project was 86 to 88, roughly.
Yeah, all the oral histories for Glenda's project were recorded in 87.
And then from my understanding, this area was made a historic district in 2004, 6-ish.
Yeah, I'm unsure the date on that. That was
well, I guess the point being that at the next evolution of it, they moved, a group got together. It was, I think,
higher ground
to designate the importance of the area. So I guess my point or my question is, with this historic designation, is the history of that community as recognized or safe, for lack of a better word? Is there going to be another push in another 10 years for another project to kind of say, hey, we can't let this slip away? Or what's your sense of the state of
there's still a lot of work to be done. There's so much history to be told. I mean, these families, the Harts and Sells and Lewises, Thompsons, they make up just about every event and period of history throughout the Three Village area that has gone overlooked and unrecognized. So there's still a lot of work to be done to really uncover that and work with the descendant communities to tell those stories and learn about what exactly we have in the archives that can support that and what kind of artifacts we can use to tell those stories.
And we did an interview a while ago with Chris Matthews. I know he was doing some archaeology on some sites related to some of these families. So it sounds like you're working with the Three Village Historical Society is working with them. There's a strong connection between the groups. And
I mean, just when this project was happening, Ted Green, who was a former leader of the Setalcott community, he was on our board of trustees when this was happening. There is this history of a relationship with the organization that really helped make this possible.
So I think we're pretty much there. Anything, Rob, you want to say about, have you gotten any contact from this material specifically being out online?
Me personally, no, but this was the first time I was working on an oral history project where I had so many living resources to aid in the creation of the project and bring it to fruition. The last thing I would stress is that if you find this collection so fascinating, be sure to check out the other oral history collection on New York Heritage under the Three Village Historical Society, because again, there are later interviews with these people's lives, but they're also someone. I mean, I loved listening to this woman, Gertie Mitchell, who was 90 in 1973 when her oral history was recorded, and she's mentioned a few times by the participants in the Eel Catching project as having known her.
References, yeah.
And so, you can get an even older glimpse of the community from someone like Gertie Mitchell, who was also part of the Christian Avenue community, but had a memory that reached even further back. I also think that Reverend Joseph Mackenzie, who has interviews in both collections, he was so forthcoming about his history and the way he was treated on Long Island, that it's worth checking out all those other interviews in the other oral history
you really, the picture starts to fill in of all the different areas, and they mention different parts of the neighborhoods or the landscape. And then, Scott, for you, any last thoughts or leave?
Like Rob was saying, I mean, that other oral history collection is great. I mean, we have Kate Strong, who was a notable historian of the community here. We have an oral history from her, and Albert Halleck.
A couple, yeah.
Yeah, shortly before they passed away, too, and this is in the 1970s. And it's invaluable resource to understanding the community's history here.
Just to look forward, when would you propose doing another round of oral histories?
Yeah, we're in the works of starting that now.
Oh, good.
And to caveat off of what Rob was saying with Hub Edwards and Helen Sells and Nellie, we have oral histories with them that were part of the Chicken Hill exhibit, but they're still here. They're still around. So we're working to collect more oral histories and learn more.